All right, everybody, welcome back to the warehouse. So, reshooting this intro just because I did it a few months ago and I honestly don't know where I put the footage, so we're going to go back over some of this. Back in late December, a company called Truvalux, maybe they're going for True Value or Truvalux. I'm going to call it Truvalux. They reached out and they said, hey, we've got a lithium iron phosphate battery. We're interested in testing it out. We don't have any script or anything like that for you. We just want to send it to you. What do you say? And I said, well, sure, here's what I normally do with these kind of batteries. If you're comfortable with that, here's my address. Their next email said, yeah, absolutely, that's fine. In fact, we'd like you to tear it apart and show people what it looks like on the inside. So left me with a little bit of pause. Maybe, again, they're trying to send me one of their better batteries. But when I looked into this company a little bit more, it didn't seem like that was going to be the case. They do seem to serve a more high-end clientele than some of the other batteries that we've worked with before. These batteries are generally valued a little bit higher, and because of that, they do have some features that are a little bit better as well. When I got into the testing, that's really where this battery seemed to shine. So I'm going to show two graphs on the screen right now. One of them is from one of the cheaper knockoff brand batteries that we've tested in the past, and one of them shows a discharge curve for this Truvalux batteries. When you're working with lithium iron phosphate, the charge and discharge cycle is kind of like their fingerprint. You know what chemistry of battery you're working with based on how these things charge and discharge. And so usually they're very, very similar. Normally you see a flat plateau around the 13.5 volts mark until you get really, really low in capacity. And then it starts to nosedive down until it gets around 10.6 volts. And usually these guys cut off based on their BMS and what it's set to. But what you'll notice is on the cheaper battery, that 13.5 volts didn't actually hold steady. It continued to drop over and over precipitously throughout the entire discharge cycle. Whereas with the other battery that we see here, the Truvalux in this case, we have that nice flat curve. Now, what that tells me from a battery testing perspective is that what we saw in things like that dumb fume battery were in fact the case. They were using more than likely older used cells that have had quite a few cycles on them already. Whereas with something like this Truvalux battery, they're using genuine new 100 amp hour cells. So that makes sense to me as to why this can not only be a smaller package than what we saw with things like those mini max batteries from dumb fume, but it's also a little bit lighter. Not significantly, they're still pretty chunky, but overall this does weigh about 5 to 7 pounds less than what I was seeing with some of those other maybe less reputable brands. So that tells me right off the bat that this is using probably new cells, or at least cells that may not have been cycled very often if they are using used cells. I wanted to tear it apart, as you can see, but first I wanted to do some testing on our full test rig here. So I pulled this down twice using my large inverter, pulling 100 amps out of this battery for the full 1 hour that it should take to drain. In both cases, I came out above 100 amp hours on the capacity for this battery. In both cases, it handled the stress no problem at all, and I didn't sense any overheating, hot wires, and I wasn't even really able to see a hot spot using my thermal camera on this one like I am for most of the other batteries. So again, it seems like they've built this pretty well, but we would only really know once we got inside. I went ahead and did a full teardown, and I'll tell you this one was a little bit rougher than some of the others. They did use a pretty strong glue in the lid of this box to make sure that it's waterproof so that it can be used in like marine grade applications. But in this case, that was to my demise. It ended up taking me a lot longer and I did a lot more damage to the top lid of this battery than I wanted to. Because of that, at this point, we can actually just, I say that and now it's not going to do it. We can actually just lift the lid right off of this. I don't really love that because with how good this battery is, I'd like to put it back into use somehow, but I'm going to need to get some more adhesive to be able to do that safely. Now, overall, this thing's built like a tank. It uses M8 bolts on the top going straight into brass lugs. Everything on the inside is tightened down very, very well. It seems like they really knew their torque specs and were able to get everything tightened. And all of the nuts and bolts on the inside were also marked with a pin so that they knew that they had tightened them before they sent it out. That's usually a good thing to see. It's a little bit of a quality test just to make sure things are actually tightened down before you send this out to your customer. Now, Truvalux app is where this thing really comes into its own. The app allows you not only to control the state of the battery and see where its current charge level is, but it also allows you to keep track of the degradation of the battery all in one place. Now, like any app that needs to connect to something that's Bluetooth, again, I really can't stress this enough, guys. When they ask for your location, they're not trying to track you. They have to ask for that in order for Android to give it access to the Bluetooth antenna. So there's nothing nefarious going on here, which is why I'm going to go ahead and just hit while using the app so that it always remembers to do this. Now, when you turn the app on, it's not something where you have a button to put this device into pairing mode, but instead the app actually looks for any Bluetooth device out there. And in this case, because I've already been in it, it automatically turned on tracking for the DP04S0071, 7L4S100A. The only right way I really knew this was the battery was because it had that 100A on there. It does tell you in the manual, but sometimes I don't like to look at that before I just kind of dive right in, so that's what we had here. Now, when you find it in your list of Bluetooth devices and turn that on, you then have 4 options along the bottom. The dashboard here is what's going to allow you to actually see the battery, its current stats, and whether it is fully charged. Now, it does show a capacity rating on here, so this BMS is actually keeping track of how many amp hours are going in and out of the battery at any given time. That checks out. Whenever I was doing any of my capacity tests, I could tell that the battery still had some juice in it, but it seems to cut off right around that 100 amp hour limit. I got between 102 and 103 in my capacity tests that I ran on this device, but I expect that there's probably more in the cells. They're just holding some of that back to make sure that the battery can last as long as possible. Now, right now, it does show me a voltage of 13.5 volts. That's exactly what I would expect to see out of a full battery. Again, you do charge these up to 14.6 volts, but they quickly drop back down as the cells kind of balance throughout. Now, speaking of cells, this will give us access to actually viewing the individual cells and seeing what their current voltage is at. It also tells us what the temperature is at, both on the MOSFET, which is going to be on the BMS itself, and at the cell temperature. There's multiple temperature sensors inside of here, so it makes sure that it's not going to have any issues with trying to charge when it's too cold outdoors. Now, the second thing that it's going to do for us here inside of this main dashboard is give us access to turning on and off the charge and discharge cycles of the battery itself. So you can actually go in and turn off the ability for this battery to discharge, which means right now there's no electricity coming out of these 2 terminals. Overall, this battery has exceeded my expectations. It is, again, a little bit on the pricier side. Compared to our other batteries, you could buy a couple of those for what you're going to get one of these for. But for the features and for the fact that you're actually getting nice new cells that are going to last the full life, you're not going to have to go back and potentially buy another battery in 3 to 5 years, I really think that this thing is worth it. It does also come with a 5-year warranty from Truvalux. I'm just reading that right off of the back here. And they are a company that's been around for at least a little bit of time. From memory, I believe they started around 2013, so they've had a presence in the battery world for some time now, and probably aren't going to disappear as quickly as some of those throw a bunch of letters into a sack and pull them out one at a time companies. Now, what am I going to do with this battery? That's a question that I get often in the comments as far as what I do with this equipment after I'm done testing it. This one I actually really like. I've already alluded to the fact that I want to re-glue the top here and use it, but I actually have another plan for this battery. Based on the footprint here, I believe that this is just about the right size to fit inside of my Tesla Model S. Some of you may not know, but Teslas do have a 12-volt system as well. They use older lead-acid batteries, just like pretty much any other car, and that's what runs things like the door locks, the lights, the basic amenities that you would have in any normal car. The high-voltage battery is mostly used to charge up the 12-volt battery system, and then, of course, to turn the wheels. The Tesla battery that I have in there right now, it's relatively new. Having just had the car serviced, it did get a new battery during that time. But I'm wondering what would happen if I put a lithium iron phosphate battery in there. They run at about the same voltage range. The Tesla is not going to charge this quite up to its full amount. It's only going to charge it to around 13.8 volts before it backs down and turns off the DC to DC converter that's built into it. So I believe that means it's going to give me a pretty good long life out of this battery, even if it does charge and discharge its full amount over and over again. The other thing that I'm looking into is the ability to turn on and off the discharge from this battery is helpful, because in the Tesla, if I want to work on any of the electrical systems, you do need to disconnect the high voltage battery, but it's usually a good practice to disconnect the 12-volt battery as well. Problem with that is that the 12-volt battery is buried below a bunch of different panels, and it takes about 20 minutes just to get to it. And disconnecting it can kind of be sketchy as well. I've actually blown a few fuses by not using the right kind of wrench and disconnecting it haphazardly. So the ability for me to turn this on and off with Bluetooth would be helpful anytime I need to get in and service the car, or if I just need to maybe do a quick reboot of something. There's one caveat to this. Tesla was weird when they made their first gen Model S's. The battery in question that I'm trying to replace this with is a reverse pull battery. So it actually has the positive on, at least facing this way, my left, and the negative on my right. Now, the good thing about tearing these batteries apart is that I kind of have the ability to put them back together however I want. So what I plan to do is go into the battery, and on the back side of these terminals, I want to reverse those two wires. I actually want to make this positive terminal the negative and the negative terminal the positive. I'll need to find a way to mark that so that if I ever get rid of that car or somebody ever goes into service in the future, they're not confused as why it's backwards. But I believe by doing that and then resealing this battery in a watertight way, I can get some good use out of this, get some long-term testing, and kind of see how it works. I haven't really seen too many other people that have done this because of that reverse pull issue. There's not too many people out there that are crazy enough to open these things up. So I'm wanting to see what goes on with it. So that's my plan for the Truvalux. Again, I'm kind of happy with how this turned out. Considering my last few reviews have not been necessarily the best, I'm happy to finally find something that does what it says it does. Now, again, these batteries are on the higher end. It's not going to be your cheapest battery if you're just looking to throw together a budget system. But really, for the features that you get, in my opinion, for the right person, this could really be worth it. I'm going to go ahead and have some affiliate links down in the description as well as in the pinned comment. If you do want to pick up one of these Truvalux batteries, please feel free to use that. That's the easiest way that you can support the channel. Other than that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing backed around, see if I can get it into the car. If you want to see that entire process, leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to document it and kind of show you all what goes on. I know that Teslas have a little bit of a shaky history when it comes to social media, so I definitely don't want to get into being a Tesla bro as far as my channel goes, but again, it's my car, it's something that I do work on, and if it's something you guys want to see, let me know. For now though, feel free to like and subscribe if this is a video that you like, so that I know what else to put out on the channel, and I will see you all back here on the next one.